together. Across the world we've grown, through blooms and roots and seasons. You've made this place a home. Your kindness lifts my spirit, your passion lights the way. With every word, every moment shared, you brighten up my day. Through the struggles and successes, we are here, supporting, showing care sincere. Every orchid blooms brighter with your support. You're the heart of this journey, my constant resource. You're simply the best, better than all the rest. Amazing, inspiring, incredible friends. Together we rise, through the lows and the highs. Orchid ninjas, you help the orchids thrive. Every comment, every share, sending videos far and wide. You're more than just subscribers, you're my family worldwide. Through the messy, tough challenges, we celebrate the wins. With your support, no dream's too big, it's where the magic begins. From the roots to the blooms, through the rain and the sun. Since you have been here, battles are fun. Your love for orchids keeps me inspired. You're the spark in my world, the fuel I've required. You're simply the best, better than all the rest. Amazing, inspiring, incredible friends. Together we rise, through the lows and the highs. Orchid ninjas, you help the orchids thrive. We've built this together. It's more than a channel, it's a haven for growers, a place to dismantle doubts and fears, replace them with dreams. With every orchid, we're stronger as a team. You're simply the best, better than all the rest. Amazing, inspiring, incredible friends. Together we rise, through the lows and the highs. Orchid ninjas, you help the orchids thrive. So here's my heart, my gratitude true. This channel's nothing without all of you. Through orchids and life, let's share every test. And orchid ninjas, you're simply the best.
I did it again. Oh my goodness. Alrighty. Well, I'm so sorry. Let's start this again. Not the stream, but let's start this again. See how excited I was because I had a great week. I did. So I was just already right into it, not focusing, thinking I got it all under control, meaning I got nothing under control. But anyway, welcome. Let's do this again. It's so nice to see you. Yes, I'm feeling chipper because I'm proud of myself. I got everything done I wanted to do this week. And last night I thought, oops, that was a bit too much, but this morning, by now here I am excited. I was almost going to do a patio tour because I had such a great week chopping things off and getting things done. And even on days when I wasn't feeling it, I got it done anyway. And afterwards I felt great. So thank you so much for being here. If you're here on the stream proper. I should now turn the camera off. I'm getting hot under the collar. Ah, good thing I'm not wearing a shawl. Look at this. We're moving into spring proper. No shawl, first time. Anyway, am I embarrassed? I am mortified. But yeah, today I'm really feeling it. Having said all that, let me know how your week went. For once in, let's say I've been, lagging and talking about things and difficulties and all that stuff. But, for once I can literally sit here and not pretend to feel good about things, good about the time of year. Not so good about the orchids, but I don't know where I was still muted, but let's do this again just for, the giggles. You see that empty, dirty space back there? They're gone outside. They didn't fare too well this winter because we've had some scale issues, let's put it that way. Lots of defoliation happening, but I think we've got that under control. Basically, I did my best over the winter, but anyway, like I said, I was so tempted to do a patio tour today just because I wanted to show off and be a little bit proud of myself, you know what I mean? As you do. Get some kudos from you guys. Like, wow, beautiful. But we're going to do that. Let me see, for the next 10 days, 2 weeks. Some orchids, you can see they still have to go outside, but I didn't want to push it. And we still haven't done the shower curtain, so that's still pending to be done. However, my daughter's home for vacation, so I'm going to put her to work. I already tentatively asked. I said to him, it's not like I want to interfere in your spare time, but would you, no rush, rush. All that fun stuff. Anyway, so we've got time for that. But yeah, it was great. It was great. And because it was so productive, and we had discussed with Julian's son, like last week, he was talking about lava rock and why roots fail. It was actually just timing wise ideal, because as I'm going through broken pots, yes, I did 3 repots this week, dealing with lava rock, and that's 3 broken pots out of the way. Yay me, we're working. Do you know how tentative I am now about where I'm picking up masks from other pots when I'm either flushing now or filling the reservoir? Because I don't want another one to break. As long as you're not broken, you're not on the schedule, because there's others that are on the schedule that I'm not quite sure how I want to go about it and what I want to do. So I'm like, don't break, because so far I'm doing really well with eliminating broken pots. Anyway, having said all that, I thought this stream we're going to do and have a look at the dendrobiums I repotted, because they are in a sorry state. However, it's about lava rock, so I'm just thought, I'm going to put something together, and then we'll talk about that, my thought process, which I hope I don't forget a single one of those thoughts as we go through that. Anyway, having said all that, if you're here on replay and I was muted for the first 3-4 minutes, let's say the intro was muted +2 maybe, thank you for still being at this stage of the stream on replay. You're so appreciated. Let me know how your week is doing. Let me know how things are happening, what you've done. If you want to share, if you don't, that's fine as well. Anyway, not to brag, but, I feel I prefer being like this as opposed to cranking up the inner workings of, chipper and cheerful, so as not to come across as, constantly complaining, moaning, and feeling like I'm feeling sorry for myself. So this is great. I had nothing to build up towards except just sit down and promptly forget. to unmute. Anyway, right. Oh, Julian, son, you are not late. Goodness me, the beginning was a complete shambles. One was unmuted and one was on mute once more. So thank you so much for being here. I said hello to Mr. Joe. Thank you so, so much. Wingman is in the house. Thank you for being here. I did say on mute that Orchid Ninja Bebe-san is here. Good morning, beautiful. I sincerely hope that you're already having a wonderful day. And Julie-san is already working on Sunday morning on the other side of the world. I hope she's gone back to sleep. Probably very easy when everything's on mute. So I wonder, did you, while I was on, yeah, you heard the song because I heard that over the headphones. So you heard the song, right? Anyway, we know that song. Righty-ho. And Sarah, Joy, let me tell you something. I was just about to say Sarah. I know your name now without having to think about it. And just now I made an almost mistake. So Joy, over there in Greece, thank you so much for being here. I did greet you on mute. Anybody got lip reading skills? Apply them because you never know. Wingman, so good of you to be here. Good morning. All righty, let me share the screen and let's get into what is a very, very pathetical looking Dendrobium Patricia van Boeyenbroek. This orchid has been outside, I think, the second winter now because she always comes in with these weird funguses. Now, there is something a little bit alarming about this orchid, but you can see all her spikes. We'll see some bloom, a shot of her blooms afterwards. You see all these spikes. She had a fabulous blooming, so I wasn't complaining about that. She's growing really well as well, and this will be her first repot, only necessary because and I'm targeting broken pots. I don't, she has a broken rim. She's got to come out. If the pot had still been intact, I wouldn't even have bothered repotting. Hey, it's good to see you. Hello. Vasily. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Here's YouTube doing what? These handles, I see you in my comments. I love your avatar, so cheerful. I love that haircut. You are rocking that style. I know your avatar, but your real name is actually different. Please do not disclose if you're not comfortable with that. But if I said your name wrong, I am sorry. Usually in the comments, what I do if I'm not familiar is I go and check, to see if the channel name has another name I can address you properly with. But it's so nice of you to be here. I'm so glad that you could make it. Anyway, so my Dendrobium, the alarming thing about it this year, I'm not fussed anymore about the spotting. This happens with my climate during the cold months, and by the time it gets a little bit chilly and this orchid can come inside, she doesn't come inside simply because of the spotting, and I don't need anything like this to spread. What I try to do every season is to get better and better at preventative measures. However, sometimes it catches me off guard, and then if you have long weeks of nasty weather, you're hardly outside just for a stint a little bit, these things, they can run away with me on that extent. However, the orchid is growing great, and you can see by all the spikes, she had a wonderful blooming. Now, the only concern this year for me about this orchid is the ringy kind of spotting here. That's concerning. These random spottings here, yeah, I'm not bothered. Now, this could be the onset of a virus, or it's just coincidence. However, one of my Cattleyas is doing the same thing. I think it's a Cattleya I saw recently that when I took her outside, I went, oh, please, no. Please don't be what I think you are. Anyway, time will tell. So that's what was the concerning part for me. So we have today on the schedule her to repot. We also have on the schedule my pocket lover, similar scenario, different circumstances, but broken pot. This timing is not ideal. I'll get into that. And then we also have another one on the schedule that's going from the Kingianum, because you reminded me, Joe, the Kingianum that's going from Leca into lava rock, and I'll explain all that when we get to that part. Now, it sounds like a lot but I'm sure we'll be zipping through quite a lot of it as well. My 19 minutes includes me fiddling, fussing, and I don't know what. I didn't cut all of that out. This orchid is gorgeous. I would say she has sort of berry odor vibes. She has a fantastic fragrance, just like sort of berry odor into the molasses, honeysuckle, sweet kind of vibe. Absolutely fabulous. I wouldn't want to be without her. She was a gift from Tokyo World Mark and Kern Orchids back in 2021. And she was potted into lava rock straight away with self-watering in 2022 after I had watched her, seen how she performs, and she started new roots. So that's when I started to fiddle. Joe says, I repotted a Kingianum with all its keikis in the same terracotta pot with 50% lava rock a couple of days ago. Alrighty, so our timing is pretty much even Stevens. Okay, so that's the close-up of her blooms and what we're dealing with. Now, this footage was compiled in, I think on Wednesday. So anyway, the whole thing is about taking the spikes off. I wasn't anticipating anything dramatic with this orchid and the repot because basically she is not in active root growth as per there are no new roots, there are no new growths. So all I'm doing, and I thought I can tackle this regardless of the circumstances, is because this is pretty much straightforward. With as little intervention as possible, take the orchid out, try not to damage the roots, stuff her in her next pot, and then fill around with lava rock of the same size. What I wanted to show you here, in case you are picking up on it and wondering, what is all that on the surface there? This is old, like cypress, you know, the hedge thing into the pots. This is not dead roots. And then you see the white on top. Yes, that is salt accumulation, which often happens to my orchids during the winter months when I very, very sparingly fertilize. And when I try to keep orchids out of the rain as much as possible because of possible fungus issues, which this one is a candidate. And I do have her in the covered portico, the blooming alley area. But again, the high humidity in the air, a little bit of airflow, if everything is 100%, even the breeze is 100% humidity, things just don't dry out. So putting her in the rain would be a big mistake, in my opinion. And anyway, salt accumulates because, yes, even though there is no active wicking action in the lava rock per se, water will evaporate, and with that, salt accumulation stays behind. Alrighty, so this is me just showing my the size of my lava rock, as I discussed with Julia and Son last week, what I consider to be medium. It's half a thumbnail. A large one would be a large, like my whole thumbnail would be covered. So when I say medium lava rock, this is sort of, I'm trying to give you, you know, the perspective of size ratio based on my thumbnails. Basically, I'm 6 foot tall. I'm not a small person, so that's a bigger thumbnail than some. I'm sorry, but I hope this helps. I just thought about that. Not all thumbnails are made the same. Anyway. Oh, and you please ask any questions at all that you might have, even if it doesn't pertain to the topic. I will do my best to stop and answer. Now, this is one of the things that I don't like to, you know, grab the orchid and have to lift out. That's why these broken pots have to come out of the collection, because me fumbling away in an awkward position with the back and hip issues, it's dangerous for me at that stage, because the positioning body, it can make me, you know, like collapse on one side, and the whole weight thing, I can drop orchids like that. So all this is, you know, part and parcel to make everything look pretty. But also it's a safety measure on my part. I was very surprised how well rooted this orchid was. Then on hindsight, I had actually forgotten how beautiful the roots were when she came out of her pot back in the day with just seedling bark around her. And I had a wonderful session on the patio talking you through about my fears for the channel back in 2021. And asking for support, and there I was fiddling with tweezers, getting all the bark out, which I don't do as much anymore. I don't even chop dead roots, because now working with inorganic media, all this fiddle is pretty much unnecessary, and I can transfer everything into the same pot without having to worry about sitting and getting out or organic media stressing roots out. All right, so there's a lot of what would be perceived as dead roots here as well, but there's a lot of live roots. And the so-called brown roots that could be perceived as dead, they are actually viable. They are just stained by seaweed and the likes, because if I chop into those, they would be green in the center. They are also very wiry. It's not a texture of a dendrobium where you see the roots are a little bit, they'll do a little bit of a give, that you can just get away with, maybe plucking things out, moving things around, getting into the root ball to get all the dead roots out. This is a root system that is extremely wiry and very thin, as you can see. So if I were to be pedantic about, this repot and try to get in there and I remove lava rock on a root that is alive, it's going to strip the velamen and the cortex and everything right off. No doubt about it. No pre-soaking will avoid that because of all the crevices of lava rock. This is where, in my head, I've always figured that lava rock is a fantastic media. However, know what you're up against when it comes to repotting. If you want to do something as radical in 5-6 years, if you want to do something like, dividing, you're going to incur a lot of root damage to get into that rhizome part of dividing and separating, and then all the lava rock is going to come along with velamen. So that's the only downside that I see when it comes to repotting, that we kind of have to be aware of what we are up against down the line, because everything's cool. Everything's hunky-dory right up to when we need to repot, okay? I have no problem with it because I don't fiddle with a root system the way many of us like to do. If I can just get away with an up pot with inorganic media, that is what I do. And that is why I also went into this project despite not seeing new growths and despite not having an actively growing root system, because I knew my disturbance of that root system is going to be zero, minimal. I'm not going to add to it, with the exception of just the damage I incur by getting the orchid out of the pot. Speaking of which, hi, Debbie. That is so sweet of you. Please be safe on the road out there, okay? Thank you so much for tuning in while you are commuting. So another thing with this particular orchid as well that I took over from having had her repotted the first time is just how volatile the canes are. They pop off very easily. So me messing around with the canes the way I just did by getting the orchid out of the pot, pulling the microfiber through, I was already thinking, oh, watch me just snap another one off. But everything went well. Now, a little bit off screen because there was so much of a glare, I couldn't see the screen of the camera too well. But you can see at the bottom, I'm going at the root ball with my snips. I had made the decision when I saw what I saw earlier. I had made my decision back here that I'm not fussing with moving, getting all that out. Whatever microfiber can just stay. That was my preference, as in protecting the really good roots that you see, all the white ones, they're really good. I would do so much more damage. If I had this project when I saw active root growth, I would probably be a bit more adventurous and a little bit more radical and at least get that strand of microfiber out. In this instance, I chose not to. So once we get back down to the part there, all I'm doing is snipping away the old microfiber, and I'm leaving that bottom strand in, as well as the support. I'm not messing with any of that. This whole project, if I had done it in real time and you would be with me, which I would love to do again, but something happened outside with reception. It's worse than it was 2 years ago. I think that they installed a much more efficient gate thing at the neighboring community, and it's interfering with my signal because I'm getting static in my headphones even when I'm outside, and that shouldn't be happening. So I'm going up another pot size, and I'm still sticking with medium lava rock. This whole project in real time didn't take more than 8 maximum, let me just round it up, 10 minutes, which was great because then I moved straight on to the next one. And I was going to do the third one back to back to back as well. And I thought, nah, see how you feel tomorrow. Anyway, tomorrow was a great day as well. So that's why we have 3 here. So now I'm just pending to get my lobata done, even though her pot's not cracked, but her growth is right up and the roots are growing way too long for my liking, but she's on the staging area ready to go. And then I can also focus on other ones. And here we are. Basically, it's just a question of filling around, getting the orchid to the height that you want, and just putting more lava rock in there. That's all that it took. And with all that rattling and some of the leaves that are affected by the fungus fell off. Now you can also ask, why did you not use or wipe the leaves off during, to make them prettier, at least the ones that are intact for this repot? That is because I forgot. I had a tupper thing ready with insecticide, fungicide, and la-di-da that I always wipe my orchids down with when they come in or out, la-di-da, do all that. And I completely forgot it. Based on the massive amount of rain we had, the solution that I had outside got diluted, and I never actually refreshed that. So when I got to repotting and I was in the position I was, I thought, do I dare now walk all the way? And no, I just said, okay, forget it. We're not going to do that. We're going to take one day and just mix up a new solution and go around the whole collection bit by bit and wipe down where things need to be wiped down. But yeah, this one is still pending some preventative measures when it comes to the fungus issues. So I would have, I kicked myself. I was so happy that I was standing there. I had all my equipment around me. I was ready to go. And then I thought, oh no. And I just opted, whatever, dusty leaves as opposed to shuffle, shuffle, shuffle and make a mistake. And then it won't come. It won't happen. So Joy says, I repotted about 50 orchids last. 50? Oh my goodness. You take that trophy, you get the award. I repotted about 50 orchids last week because I wasn't working. I would like to ask, do you spray your orchids now in spring, even if there are no bugs yet? Yes, I do. I miss them. And in some Cattleya cases, I wipe them all down with a rag in the insecticidal solution. And I wipe them down, not just misting. Even if I don't see anything, I know where they've been locating on the shelves. And my Jomelia, for example, was very affected all winter long. It was a paintbrush thing. Long story short, I know who's close to the Jomelia, so everything gets wiped down, and where it's too little, they do get sprayed. Yes. This pocket lover has been a joy. Cateva Orchidin, she is the one that gave this one to me. Also went into the pot for the first into this pot in 2022. And here we are. I have to do this repot now, even though she's in bloom and she's in bud. She smells delicious of lemon powder, lemon ice cream, anything creamy lemon. It's very zesty, very fresh, just gorgeous fragrance. And she's a powerful little one. She can be in the cul-de-sac of my blooming alley and I can walk outside and woo, there she is. Yum. What a pleasure to have her. She is in my climate, which is extremely dry, prone to spider mites. And she's the first one that ever contracted spider mites on the patio. I never had spider mites before. And one day I was like, oh, hello, this one. So yeah, Sarah, also to your point, yes, this one is also getting, you'll see dusty leaves, same thing, didn't do the solution. This was the same day. You'll see dusty leaves and we'll leave it at that, but she's getting that treatment for sure. And Joe says, my hibiki is looking like this one, but with more yellow leaves. I repotted that one in a lava rock mix recently, so it doesn't hold as much water. It's also sensitive to colder temperatures. It sure is. Yes, I'm hoping to get a hibiki through I may be losing it, but I will be repotting that one into lava rock as well. Currently, it's still in leca. I may have to do a radical reset on my hibiki, but we'll see. All the old canes have defoliated, but they're still chubby. So that's, I'm kind of watching it, and she's still inside because I'm so wary of that orchid. If I lose the hibiki, it's okay. I'll be upset, but no big deal. It goes on my list of gone, but not forgotten, as in one day I'll get another one back. And then it's not going in leca. It will definitely go into lava rock. But yeah, that's on my list of watch it, because timing is of essence when orchids are weak, which this one is not. But the timing of this one is great because she's starting active growth. Now, with these hybrid compact dendrobiums that I have in my collection, I have always noticed and recognized that their growth, the root growth, starts probably just a little after. I could have waited maybe 3 weeks with this one to repot her. Maybe I could have also left, let the flowers bloom out, but these blooms also last quite a long time. So, catch 22. Having said all that, seeing the new growths coming out, seeing I've got plenty of energy in older canes. Some are a little bit dodgy, but they're also older canes. But I figured I can take the risk and just get this project out of the way as well, because the new roots on these little ones, they usually come when the new growth is, leafing out and then some. So you're almost like a third or halfway up to a mature sized cane when these little hybrid compact dendrobiums start to root out. Also, this one, for example, has the attributes of like a nobile. And so if you have a big nobile, same principle applies. Just watch how the new growth performs. And if it starts to get onto its second set of leaves, you're usually about either already in active root growth, or you'll see active root growth in about 5 to 10 days. So this is just me showing how the base of a cane was depleted, even though it looked nice and plump from the top. I wasn't sure if I'd cut into a nice cane, but it was ratty looking. So thank goodness for that. It was rotting at the base, but not rotting the orchid at the base, just an old cane having done its job. Now, so just know that the timing in this instance is I'm about 10 days out of new root growth starting based on the size of these new growths. And that is why I went into this project with buds and blooms, the whole 9 yards, and felt a little bit bad because every little bloom and bud on my patio is precious and I may lose out, but 3 days later, I haven't seen any decline because once again, I have not messed with the root ball. It was exactly what we did prior, and it was as little interference as possible, with the exception of ferns. But I've got a type of fern this time around that's very shallow rooted, which is wonderful. Even though it's a large plant, I can actually pluck, remove, and nothing, gets jiggled on the inside. But this is also making me hopeful because I could see that the new roots, the older roots were already white. So there is already activity in the pot, which is a little note to self because this is my first repot of this orchid. And it's just a little mental reminder that maybe in 5 years, 6 years, when I want to do this again, and hopefully my pot lasts that long, then I'll know that at this stage, with the new growths the way they are, this orchid already actively grows roots and starts to expand from the older root system, which is still viable. So great. She doesn't look to be a prolific root grower, but if she does this thing about, I'm going to grow roots, from the older root system, so be it. Balances itself out. You can see the dusty leaves. I don't know what. There should be a lot more leaves on the canes from the previous year and the previous years, but the spider mite issue, I plucked them all off and then, showered the whole older canes down just to make sure there were no remnants. I am very loath of plucking leaves off because A, it weakens the orchid. It leaves very little surface for photosynthesis, but sometimes needs must. And if you have enough canes, like I do in this instance, I have enough reserve canes that will provide energy for anything to grow. If I take all the leaves off just as a precautionary measure, which I did with my pocket lover 2 years ago, to its favor, she looked nasty. You know, imagine big, nice poodle, I don't know what, all poofy, comes from the groomers, and you've got, you know, this coming home. Similar with a pocket lover, looks nasty, but it's the quickest way to eradicate a problem, to then be able to start fresh and do a preventative treatment with whatever structures are left behind on the orchid as such. So once the blooms go here, I will be drowning, you know, misting, wiping everything off as a preventative measure. In this case, A, I didn't have it prepared as mentioned, but B, also in bloom. So if you go with pesticide and insecticides and you want to do a preventative treatment just because needs must and they're in bloom, I would, you know, hold something to protect the blooms, be it a rag, be it your hand, spray, mist as best as possible, because those products can and possibly will affect the appearance of your blooms or take them out prematurely, even cause bud blast. Anything that comes in touch, you know, it can, because usually our pests are eradicated because of the sucking out of their juices thing. I don't remember, the desiccating effect. So that's how our pests are usually eradicated. And of course, that characteristic will translate and transfer over to any buds, blooms, and all that business. So be very careful how you administer if you have to spray. Cover the orchid. In this case, it's pretty much impossible. And even a rag touching, just the corner of a rag touching a bloom, no. I'm messing around with this orchid enough by repotting it. And that is absolutely, that's as far as I was prepared to go in order to get another orchid out of a broken pot. And yay, very happy. This one could have been a little bit higher in the pot as an end result, but I figured, oh, well, it doesn't, when I was looking at it this way and I saw the blooms, here's me pointing with my fingers, the blooms right at the rim, they weren't right at the rim in the previous pot. And I thought, yeah, do I lift her up more? I think I did one more jiggle, one more adjustment to raise her up a little bit, but pretty much left her the way it is. So there they are, all done. And it was just a question of getting them all watered in. Now, because my pocket lover already had nutrients in it from maybe a week ago, I just used plain water, just matched it with what my Patricia here is doing as well. Just because we saw all the salts build up on the older media, and I just thought, no, just plain water. There's no need. And I just applied the two of them. Joe, it was wonderful to see you. Thank you so very much for joining, for the time that you had. Enjoy your lunch and the rest of your weekend. So yeah, in here, just plain water, even though there's new growths, but we just took away some salty top lava rock, and I just thought, no, it's okay. They've had what they had a week ago. This was absolutely fine. And contrary to what I normally do, I also didn't soak in calcium, magnesium, or seaweed or anything like that. There are certain steps that I am choosing to skip at this point based on what I'm able to and possibly anticipate I'm able to do on any given day. So if I, do a soak, that means I am going to repot. Because what's the point of a soak, right? I don't know how the next day is going to be, so I have to be very, very attentive as to what I am physically capable of and what I am prepared to do on that day. And if I am in the kitchen and I mix something up, then that's going to have to then pull through. I have to then be 100% sure. So just know that never, if you can help it, don't skip on a CalMag seaweed soak prior to repotting. It really, really helps. It really does. It gives your orchids those components, those nutrients as a supplement, a little bit higher concentration to bring them through the stress of a repot. And then you also add the growth hormone in the seaweed, which obviously amplifies any potential root growth, branching, etc., and helps with the growth of new growths. Okay, so I'll just be very transparent as to why in some instances I choose to skip that. But let me tell you something. I'm going to go back to having had a fantastic week and pretty much getting everything done I wanted to get done. I was actually thinking, yeah, okay, so I overdid it. And then on yesterday evening, I thought, oh my goodness, you know, I needed my cane because I refuse to take any medication to counteract the inflammation and all that. I need to gauge where I'm at, if it's the warm temperatures that are helping me to recover faster from a day-to-day basis, or if I now need to have, you know, my pills just to make it through the day. So I've been reducing that amount and then recognizing I can't do without it. But yesterday I thought, just let it go. It was the worst night ever. So I do need them still. However, having been able to be on my feet, the amount of times and for the length of times doing what I'm doing this week was 100% more than, let's say, last week. And for me, that is massive and it's epic. So I'm prepared to understand also that in the evenings, I'm, you know, flat out, you know, in the position I have to be in order to be free of pain to try and sleep. But it encouraged me that I know it's going to be okay for what's coming up next week, which are more chores on the patio. And also now I've been away from doing chores indoors. Now it's time to also tackle indoors. So I'm going to up the ante with my activities next week and still gauge a little bit how I can, you know, how I can perform. So wish me luck. I'm excited for it. I'm emboldened, you know. I'm just encouraged by being able to be able to do what I wanted to do this week without making an excuse for myself and actually pulling through it. I'm really excited. So I know that it might sound as childish babble to you, but that's how I feel. I feel very encouraged. Julian San says, talking about seaweed, I lost the data sheet of kelpbacks and can't remember the concentration it's supposed to be diluted. The concentration, well, depends on your orchid and the size of it, how many, but if we go with, yeah, if we just simplify it, for seedlings, I always went with 50 parts per million. And I always went by parts per million. I did not go by the whatever components on the sheet. I just made it simple because if I wanted to translate something in a video and I said X, Y, Z, I was afraid of losing people when it came to concentration. So I started to work with parts per million to make it easy. So with seedlings, I went 50 parts per million, and small orchids, miniatures, etc., that are established, miniatures like, let's say, the Rapiculus cattleyas that have, you know, very big structures. I consider them similar to large orchids simply because they have the same requirement. Just because they're small in stature, they're hungry. So with them, I go 100 parts per million, and that leads up to, let's say, towards 150 parts per million with medium compact, getting into the small, not miniature, but small, then medium compact. Let's say an encyclia. Oh my goodness, I have to show you something. Please, don't let me forget the thought, okay? I'll be right back. So this is great. Don't let me forget, please. Hold the thought. All righty, we're back. Let me go this. Let me just stop for a moment because it just gave me a thought. Let me show you. Oh, speaking of 150 parts per million with the medium to small orchids on seaweed, I give my Kyoguchi Happy Field. That's the size that I administer 150 parts per million. I call her my Issey Miyake orchid because she smells like the perfume. Issey Miyake, the classic one, the resident fern. Isn't this amazing? I'm so happy. I'm so proud of her. Even though the light levels weren't as such, but I'm so proud of her. I was thinking today before the live stream, which orchid can I put by my side that I can show that is in bloom? And I was like gonna lug out the Astraea. And I thought, no. Dropping is not an option. So I completely forgot about her. Oh, she's gorgeous. Anyway, so this is the size that I have for 150 parts per million. And then I go to 200 parts per million, anything above like a large Cattleya. Even 300 is not out of the question if there are multiple growths at a time. With one lead, I very rarely go to 300 parts per million. I go with 200 because, also the rest of the collection benefits from a 200 parts per million if I need to, if I don't want to dilute, if I don't want to pull more RO water or anything like that to dilute. So 200 is not an issue. By the time I go to 300, it has to be something like a Cattleya Dinard Blue Heaven, which is a monster, huge orchid, big structures. It has 3 leads. The same with my Brincolea digbyana. It has 2 leads, big structures, sturdy structures. They need, you know what I mean? That's where I go to 300. Other than that, it's usually about 200. And I hope I answered the question. Oh, I can't believe I forgot her. She's next to my Schilleriana, which is also in bloom. The two are, I can't believe I forgot her. But anyway, I'll leave her here. We'll have a look at her later. So I hope I answered that question. Let me know, and we shall proceed. In the meantime, I'll be checking the chat box to see if I need to get back to you on that. If there's any more questions beyond that, then let me know. And by the way, I'm not sure if you're familiar or if your seaweed normally shouldn't change the pH, but the pH doesn't matter if it's 6.5 or 7 or whatever. You know what I mean? It's the absorption is the normal absorption of anything that people always talk about within 5.5 or 6.5. Now, if you're going to add the seaweed in with a nutrient, a supplement, then a pH according to the nutrient you want the orchid to absorb. And if all of that was too mumbo jumbo, then I'm happy to clarify further as well. All right, Julian Sun, you say thanks, and I hope that was clarified as well. Thank you very much to you. All righty, Pocket Lover, moving on. This is my Kingianum, and this is where the spotting is really bad, but also good. So I only had this growth out of the image, you can't see, but this growth is leafless. This one pretty much fell off after the repot. This one was dead. But all the new growths came through the winter fine. So I now have to register exactly where this orchid was located in the whole, let's say, patio, because it's the first time she's come out of the winter without any spotting on the new growth. So it is high time for me to get preventative treatments onto her ASAP, like ASAP. So I haven't done that today. I thought that was scale, but I haven't done that. Yes, no, I didn't do that. So it's got to be done. There's no new growth. There's no risk of anything accumulating in a new growth situation where droplets of whatever, be it water, fungicide, can accumulate and rot out a new growth, which has also happened with this orchid. During the summer, incredible. So I learned a lot. And then all this spotting here going on, I mean, it looks really pretty if you didn't know what you were looking at, but not on an orchid, you don't want this. So the reason I had her in leca was just that was my go-to when I got this orchid. These were little keikis. I got them from Fernanda Nascimento Orchids and Succulents all the way down there what am I saying? Anyway, yonder in Portugal. So these were little tiny keikis, and we've been growing them for the past years. And everything was leca at the time. because at the time also coming in, it wasn't that big a deal. I didn't have such radical winters with very low light levels. Behold, this orchid stays outside also during the winter because she can take the temperatures that go all the way down to 5 degrees Celsius, which is your 41 degrees Fahrenheit. However, there is evaporative cooling in the leca. And I figured what I'm going to do with her this year, apart from taking off all the leaves that have spots on them and making her look just like sticks in a bowl, is to see if my judgment was not just the temperature, but I completely misjudged whatever's going on in the pot because of the evaporative cooling of leca during the winter months, or any months for that matter. And that temperature may just be a little bit too low, even though you can have a Kingianum out in the wild doing wonderfully well in freezing temperatures for a little bit. But because they're all on rocky little crevices, the sun will warm those rocks up and the roots will be a little bit more toasty than they are in my climate if they're always in leca. And besides, the roots of these Kingianums out in the wild are also exposed to a lot more air. So they get warmth, they get a lot of air, they have a chance to dry out, and at night it can go back down to freezing, and the orchid will be absolutely fine as long as the day provides what the day provides. And in my climate, that doesn't happen. So that is why broken pot, I took the opportunity and just thought, okay, we're going to do this. She is going into lava rock so that I can eliminate one little thing that I can now watch and see what happens to her over the next coming winter and how she performs. I was well pleased with the root system. And remember, these were all keikis, and some performed better than others. So this was concerning. I didn't want to separate them, but it also answered a question of mine. I wanted to get this daisy chain of wire that I had wrapped around all the keikis to make them stay upright in the pot initially. I actually wanted to cut that off so that it could just be one thing without this wiring all around her. And that little section of keiki answered my question. Que no. So the wire stays on. And moving forward, we'll just have to make sure that that little piece establishes itself properly, and then I can take the wiring off. Meanwhile, everybody else doesn't need the wire anymore. So this was straightforward as well. I didn't fuss with any of the leca in the root system. I do not have active growth either on this orchid. It was just a question, broken pot, check, leca into lava rock. I've got that out. I don't have to go look for it. Check, let's get this done. The pot that I've put this in is far too big. It could have gone into a normal 9 centimeter, let's say, what's that, 5 inches? It could have gone back into the same size pot as we see here on the left. However, I don't have that smaller pot anymore, and I hadn't bothered my daughter yet. You know, in bits and bobs, small bites. Could you please, no rush. That kind of thing. Anyway, it doesn't matter either. If I was working with organic media, I would have thought, yeah, no, we're not going to do this. Grin and bear it in a broken pot. But in inorganic media, we have the advantage, once again, this orchid with such a tiny, compact rhizome, small growth, it can stay there indefinitely. You know, it's probably going to be the pot that's going to give way before the orchid even needs repotting, as we saw with the other ones. So that was okay. I can use that pot. I have plenty of that size as well. It's actually just the next size up. It just looks so much bigger. And just as a case in point, my tetragonum, the first time after I did a bit of fiddling with that one, but I eventually put it into a small little pot with small lava rock. It's in a cattleya, a rubiculus cattleya pot, and it's been there, what are we now, 2026, 5 years, and it doesn't look like it needs to come out anytime soon, unless a new growth does something really funky and it's starting to annoy me, and then we'll address it. But tiny little base can go in a tiny little pot and everything's fine, and it's lava rock. Who cares? No repotting, no fussing with the roots. This one also, plain water. There's no active growth with this one just yet. And I was super pleased with myself. We got her done. It was, like I said, it was a wonderful week. I feel a sense of accomplishment like a child. So after this picture was taken, I took this leaf off, I took this leaf off, and now I'm just hoping for a little bit better performance. And we'll see if the warmer roots on the orchid will do something better for her for, let's say, the winter of 26, 27. Because she's going to stay outside, COC. I'm not having the risk of anything. And she bloomed beautifully. I just didn't take many pictures because she, at the time she bloomed, there were more leaves that were nasty looking on her. But no, she had 4 spikes. They all looked fabulous. They all smelled wonderfully fragrant, similar to, again, a berry odor because Kingianum is one of the parents. And I got another, it's a little lighter on the sugar side with honeysuckle, not so heavy as with the molasses. Sorry, I'm just going to add something to the block list. I don't want all that going on. It's funny how the other platforms I'm streaming on has, bots coming in. Whereas on YouTube, I can select just subscribers only, and I select subscribers only for quite a while before you can even comment, but it takes all the garbage out, takes the trash out, because no bot is going to subscribe and then put stupid comments into your chat, right? So, but other platforms we're streaming on, it's like, my block list there is ever increasing. So yeah, those are the 3 that we did into lava rock. And I'll probably just capture some footage of my lobata and other repots that I've got planned, just to have the footage on hand for future reference and needs must situations. Then what have I got planned for this week? Well, first of all, we've got the Q&A coming up. No, we do not have the Q&A coming up next week. Do we? Please don't tell me April. Anyway, in my head, we've got the Q&A coming up next week or the following. But if we don't, then we're going to do a patio tour next week because the remaining orchids that are still inside, they will be outside. And I can also capture some footage of, wiping the orchids down, seeing how bad they are. Oh boy, did I take some pictures of a nice little cluster of whatever fuzzy thing that was in my Greco Tomorrow star, my crestwood. I'm like, transparency, yeah, click. She looked clean until you saw her from other angles, and then it was like, oh boy, here we go, So maybe I can do all that as I go about my business for next week's stream, if it's not the Q&A. Then on the first week, Saturday of May, I do have the stream for our viewer images. So Bruce Sun, thank you very much. It's not an orchid he sent me, but I share an affinity for a tree that is blooming all across Pennsylvania round about now. No spoilers unless you know what I'm talking about. But and he sent me an image of a gorgeous pair of pink ones, and we're going to look at those. They don't grow here, but I was so taken by these trees when I first saw them in Pennsylvania. I was like, wow. Pennsylvania, Washington, well, the cherries are blooming in Washington, but I know a cherry tree from what I saw there. Stunning. So I got that image. And I would appreciate it if anybody wants to feature. This is a friendly reminder. Come on over, send me your images, your blooms, etc. Even if you're a channel, I am on the lookout for channels also showing pretty blooms within collections that I then link into the description. So it's just an all roundabout, let's gawk and talk about somebody else's pretty blooms. If I don't get enough entries for, showing you what's going on in other collections, then I am going to add mine to it. So we've got that coming. And of course, then I'm going to work on a nice patio tour and have some fun with you then. So it's not as if I don't have footage that I would like to work with. At the moment, it's just more fun to work with it together with you. That's it. That's all. I just love this thing so much. She's so pretty. She is just gorgeous. She makes me smile, and she smells so good. Beautiful with her little friend. She doesn't need a repot. Yay, my Atra Walker since it really does. And Robert says, I need to order some 6-inch pots for a few of mine. I have a lot of 3 to 4-inch pots, just nothing bigger except for clay, and that gets a bit heavy for the case shelves. Yeah, I'm telling you, one of my chores, not this week, but maybe the coming week after. This week, I'm too stacked with what I want to get done indoors and outdoors. But that little shed out there, it's like, it's one of those dreaded moments that it's got to be a very hot sunny day so that my lumbar region is nice and toasted, because the position I will be in, but it does need a little reorganizing. I don't know who was in there, or if the wind blew so hard that did a little rattle shake and just made everything topple over, but it's shambles. It's absolute shambles in there as well. So I'm thinking it's about time. Let me have a look, see what I've got. And maybe I'll find some more smaller, regular size pots that will, work with the masks, but with the smaller masks, but we'll see. But that's not this coming week. This coming week, I'm stacked. And I'm just hoping to be able to be as chipper and proud of myself come our stream on Saturday as I am today, because really, I'm riding high on myself. I'm riding high. It might just be also a signal to you that how relieved I am, considering the past months. Anyway. With that all being said, I am going to, we've been here an hour, love and leave you. And this is always the awkward part, because there is a 30-second delay, which is way too long, because by the time I sign off, I see comments still coming through. I'm babbling away saying goodbye. It's always an awkward transition, but let's make the most of it, I say, and not keep you any longer. But having said all that, I hope that you stay safe, as per, most importantly. But I want to express my gratitude for your continued support here. It is greatly appreciated. I do not take anything for granted at all. And just know that you mean the world. Just a little... And if you've got read between the lines skills, apply them now. Make sure you stay safe. Have yourself a beautiful day, weekend, rest of the week, whatever. If I do appear, I will be appearing as a video on for the Orchid Ninjas. Other than that, well, we'll see you touch wood. We'll see you Saturday next week. Take care. Bye.